Good day, good day, good day. Good day, Portsmouth. We're back in Portsmouth today with the 2020 online candidate forum from the Hampton Roads Black Caucus, co-sponsored by the New Journal and Guide and Positive Vibes Consulting. We're here today with the candidates who are running for the mayor's position for the city of Portsmouth. All right. Isn't that beautiful? And so we have with us today Donna, we have Anthony, and we have Cliff. And they're all running for the mayor spot in the great city of Portsmouth, the city that helped me cut my educational teeth. I worked for 14 years in the city of Portsmouth with Portsmouth Public Schools. We're going to begin by doing a quick moment of silence for the city of Portsmouth, a prayer, a moment of silent prayer for the city of Portsmouth. And then we'll begin with our pledge to the national flag and lift every voice and sing. So if you will, quiet yourselves for just a moment and pray for the great city of Portsmouth.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we've held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we've watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the most bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won, is won.
All right, and we're back. We're ready now for the candidates who are running for the mayor's seat in the beautiful city of Portsmouth, Virginia. We have Donna, we have Anthony, and we have Cliff. So I want to start off by giving each one of you a short moment, maybe about 30 seconds to introduce yourselves. Donna, take about 30 seconds and introduce yourself. Unmute yourself first. Yeah, unmute yourself first. Oh, technology is great. Okay, 30 seconds, Donna. Introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Donna Sy, and I'm running for the position of mayor to bring the government back to the people. One of the things I've noticed in Portsmouth, our voices are not being heard. So that's why I'm running. I'm been trained in the Constitution. I've been trained in the values. I've been trained to stand up and say how I'm affected by what's going on in government. And I'm here for the people.
All right, great, great. And going round robin, why don't we go with Cliff? Cliff, why don't you take a few seconds, 30 seconds, and introduce yourself?
Well, thank you. My name is Cliff Page. I ran 4 years ago for mayor. We were in desperate condition then. Our situation today is far worse. I'm the only candidate who has actually written a roadmap for the people and how we're going to get out of where we are. This time I had to add 20% more to it. It was 50 pages before, it's now 61. You can see it on Cliff Page number 4, Mayor. That's cliffpageformayor.org. It's Issues and Positions, A Path to the Future. This document is very important because a mayor should have a roadmap. This is not just a council job. I'm running to be your leader. I want to have a roadmap so that we can know where we're going. We may disagree on various things, and there's going to be a lot of input from others, but we need to know where we're going, how we're going to get there, and we're going to add things as we go along. That's your job as citizens. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And Mr. Goodwin, take a few moments, a minute, and introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Seiko, for having me today and hosting this Hampton Roads Black Caucus forum. You know, my name is Tony Goodwin, and I reside here in Portsmouth for the last 20 years. And my wife and I moved here when we first were married and, of course, came back home. Living in the Hampton Roads region in different places, obviously at the ocean front bit for a bit, where you're from, down there. And I'm looking forward to carrying the torch forward as mayor for the city of Portsmouth into the next reset of a modern day economic reset that we're faced with right now. I'm a firm believer that we are definitely needing to be in the front seat during this economic reset, and all communities in the city of Portsmouth must be ready and ready to accept the fact that we're definitely going to be in the front seat.
All right, great, great. Well, let's hop into some really great questions. I'm going to begin with this one. If elected, how should we measure your success at the end of your term in office? All right, so we'll go the same route that we've gone with the introductions. Donna, you're first. If elected, how should we measure your success at the end of your term in office?
How you can measure my success at the end of my term in office is how many people I've helped.
Wow. Okay. I didn't even have to start the timer for that one. Beautiful. So, Cliff, you're next. If elected, how should we measure your success at the end of your term in office?
Well, in my Issues and Positions, A Path to the Future, which can be seen in bullet form, paragraph forms, whatever, you're going to see a number of things that I talk about. Not everything will be accomplished, but what I do want to do is set a framework and set and establish what we can do future. I don't expect to do everything I want, but I certainly hope that we can get started, and those things that are written down, people will be generating long after I'm gone. But some of the most important things, we're going to look at them and we're going to say, he may not even have gotten there, but we set this thing in motion, because some of these are long-term, others are short-term strategies. We have to pull the people together to understand that we can save ourselves, but how we failed from the beginning and how we're going to get out of this deep hole we're in.
Okay, great, great. And Mr. Goodwin, same question.
Well, first and foremost, we have to unify the city from the things that have happened just in the most recent past. I'm a firm believer that our city is full of Portsmouth pride. It can obviously tell our own story rather than someone else telling it for us through either a camera lens or a soundbite. Portsmouth is, of course, is geographically located in the center of Hampton Roads, and I, as a professional real estate developer and also real estate agent, know the more important thing is to change our the stigma that has happened for so many years. You know, I talk to many of my colleagues in the business from other companies, and their number one response is, Tony, we cannot put our reputation on the line representing a client to bring to this city, mainly because of the red tape and the things they have to go through, and then also to be proven a success. So they will steer business away many times just due to the fact that the stigma has created this almost don't do business here type attitude. There's been some successes here just recently, but I would like to make sure that first of all we tell our story and we tell our story true, but then also add to that, change that motivation.
Okay. Now we're going to be taking some viewer questions as well. We had a viewer question from one of the Beach Brothers that I decided we're going to go ahead and shoot with. So the police chief resigned. What makes a great police chief for a city like Portsmouth and its diverse population? So we'll take a moment to let that sit in, let that marinate. The police chief resigned. Okay, so if you become mayor of the great city of Portsmouth, you'll have some play in helping to place a great police chief there in place. So in your thoughts, what makes a great police chief for a city like Portsmouth and its very diverse population? So Donna, any thoughts?
Yes, I have.
Go ahead.
I'm unmuted. Okay. Yes.
All right. Well, I didn't say this earlier, but and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Donna. I'm really sorry to interrupt. I want to say that we're going to give each one of the candidates about a minute. It might go over a little bit, but we're going to give each one of them about a minute to answer. And I'll be holding these cards up to let them know if they have 30 seconds left, when they have 15 seconds left, and when it's time to end. Okay, so I want to give you a little more time to think about that question. I know it just popped on the screen. Donna, in 1 minute, what makes a great police chief for the city like Portsmouth and its diverse populations?
Well, I haven't had time to think about it, but I did answer the question that you posed. You know, the police chief has duties and responsibilities, and that is to the citizens of the city. And that is to keep everybody safe as well as they can. And also the police chief oversees things. It's not like we have a dictator that tells their police department what to do, but they have an ethical way to handle the goals and objectives of the department. And she's responsible to the taxpayers. So that is one of the things, and they can probably say more about it than I can right now. Thanks.
Okay, we realize this is off the cuff. Good. Tony, what are your thoughts? What makes a great police chief for a city like Portsmouth?
Well, working with the police chiefs in many cases, this one, Angela Green, has obviously brought a lot of morale boost to the department. I think she's in the position of basically being on administrative leave right now, but I do feel like we have support in from our campaign to making sure she comes back into the position while we go through the process of verifying everything when it comes to the investigations of the incidences from June the 10th.
Okay. All right, and Cliff, same question.
The chief of police is the administrator of 18.2 of the state code, which is the state criminal code. She is an expert in that field. That chief, any chief, should know the state criminal code backwards and forwards. And if she has to ask anyone about the criminal code, she should not do as Chief Green did, go to the city manager, to go to the city attorney. This caused problems from the beginning. She would go to the Commonwealth's attorney. The chief must give fair and equal justice in arrest and handling of people in criminality throughout the city, irrespective of persons in any way. She must be someone who enforces the law, which Chief Green did not do particularly well.
Okay, so that was a off the cuff question, and viewers, we're going to go to the off the cuff viewer questions toward the very end of our forum. I decided to throw that one in just to kind of shake things up a little bit. So let's go to some of the other questions that we're going to work with. So what strategies would you use to implement diversity and inclusion initiatives that promote opportunities for all residents in city employment, business, and services? Donna?
Well, one of the things I'm finding that a strategy could be to implement diversity and inclusion is that there is more communication lines in Portsmouth. We have civic leagues that are in each of our 5 districts that could come together and help the citizens be able to express their needs and whatever issues they might have. We need to have actually a structure in the city where the departments can communicate with the citizens in the city on all things, employment, business, and services. It's all about communication in our city where the groups come together that citizens are a part of.
Okay. Cliff, what are your thoughts? Cliff? What strategies would you use to implement to make sure that in city employment, businesses, and services that a very diverse representation occurs?
Well, I'm not really interested in diversity and inclusion. What I'm interested in is performance. I'm interested in people who are the best qualified to get a job. What we need is merit hiring. We need people hired because of their previous performance. We need people who are expert in their fields, and we need people who are going to help everybody out. We have changed our dynamics. We're 54% Black. So if you want to say, well, how are we going to help minorities? Which minority are you talking about? 37% white, which is 5%, 7% Semitic. Which one of these minorities would you like to help out? The 14th Amendment says that we will have equal protection under the law. That's what we need. But as a city, we need to get the best qualified people we can because we're in deep trouble in this city.
Okay. And Tony, same question.
Well, basically we need an inclusive agenda, an inclusive economy, and an inclusive approach to our future. The monument and the situation on June 10th was a perfect example of where you couldn't kick the can down the road any longer. This was leadership fail number one for a number of years. When, of course, the events happened back in Charleston in 2015, it became a hot button. It became a lightning rod. People were speaking out, and there was no one listening. They took the attempt to make it a better fit and talk about moving it, but then there was laws that had to be abided by. I also believe that as a mayor, I would like to be instituting a blue ribbon committee for the Minority Business Commission to align with what's going on in Richmond, giving a full pipeline to the General Assembly on how we can do a better job for making sure we have an inclusive economy for all business owners in the city of Portsmouth, and call it Portsmouth First.
Okay, great. Interesting. Let's go to our next question. And I'm going to do away with the 1 minute. I think that the three of you are able to really give us a nice, concise statement. So we're going to do away with the 1 minute and try your best to keep it within a minute and a half. But we're not going to go ahead with the timer. It's just kind of distracting to me. And I want to make sure that your full thoughts are expressed. All right. So the next question kind of ties into the question that we just asked. And that is, what role will you play in supporting racial and social justice? Cliff, why don't we start with you this time? What role will you play in supporting racial and social justice?
Just like I said in the previous question, I believe in the 14th Amendment, and everybody should get a fair shake. Everybody should get equal justice. And I don't think you should set aside or do things for any one group of people. You have to treat everybody the same way. And that particularly is for the police department, because they represent the criminal law and they represent all of the people. And if people who are in situations of authority go beyond their responsibilities and they do things that are wrong, they must be held accountable. People need to know that they're going to get equal justice. There are not going to be any set-asides. There are not going to be any special treatment. Everybody has to play by the same rules. And this is what we have to have as a society, because this is America made up of many straws tied together. They form a bundle, a fascia, which creates something that cannot be broken. This symbol sits on either side of the Senate chambers, and it is the Roman symbol, which means from all the weak creates the strong. We are America. We are a diverse people of many cultures, many races, many religions, and we are all one. We are Americans. This is what makes us in the world, and we should not be out there making exclusions and making special treatments for any one person. We must come together as Americans.
All right, Donna, what are your thoughts on this question? What role will you play, if elected, in supporting racial and social justice?
The role I will play is what I do already. I communicate. And one of the issues I'm finding in Portsmouth is the lack of communication, not only with me, but with others too. I mean, it's like, if you've got a title, you're all important. So I'm seeing that in Portsmouth. When I go places, I like to talk to people and see how they're doing. So I feel like that racially and socially, I'm inclusive, and I believe in what's right, as we all are taught from childhood, the natural laws, how to act. So I think the role I play already is that I am supporting all folks, and they have a right to live their life peacefully as well as I.
Tony?
Well, I'll refer back to my other earlier answer as well. I've obviously been a strong supporter of business, and that's what I do. I attract the business into the city as a professional agent. And then to add to that, giving fair shake and opportunity is definitely ingrained in our way of doing business. The Minority Business Commission, I think, is a one way to show to the community that we're here together and for them. And making sure that we are setting the path for a stronger economic future for the city of Portsmouth. Let's face it, the city of Portsmouth is full of different communities, and we want to make sure that their voices are heard. And leadership that's one part of leadership, and that is listening to people. So my goal is to establish that business commission right out of the gate and be ready for the next General Assembly session come the first of the year.
Interesting. A related and thrown in question. What are your thoughts on qualified immunity? Cliff?
Qualified immunity derives from sovereign immunity. This is a complex subject. I don't know if I can give it to you in a minute and a half. But any laws before 1776 can be used as precedents in the United States. Anything after that cannot be. Sovereign immunity did not arise in British law until 1807, and it was expunged from the British Code in 1947. It came into the United States through the judicial branch, not through the legislative branch. We live in a commonwealth. Our commonwealth, a lot of people don't understand what it is. We derived our governance in Virginia from the time of the Commonwealth of Oliver Cromwell. It was a republic in England until they brought back Charles II. And then James II came along, and he had to abdicate. And then the two heads of government were William of Orange from Holland, who was a Protestant, who married Mary of Scotland, who was a Catholic, but they agreed not to be try to run guns into Britain again and arm the Catholics, and because the Commonwealth people were the Roundheads, and they were very upset with this. So this is how we came about with our Second Amendment. But also, we did not have sovereign immunity, and Mary and William signed an agreement that turned the government over to the sovereign people, the people who create the legislature. The legislature creates the executive, and the executive creates the judicial branch. This is the short history of how we come about our government, and we don't teach British history in school anymore, and we should, because we need to understand this. Police have a limited sovereign immunity, and that comes from sovereign immunity itself. It's very complex, and it's very divisive, and I'm not sure I'm not sure if it's even legal, but most states, all but 13, have gotten rid of sovereign immunity, and now they operate off of insurance policies or self insure themselves as cities and states. So I'm not happy with it, particularly as it deals with economic development and redevelopment, which are actually operating like despotic tyrannies in the Commonwealth of Virginia, because we do not have we do not have rights to due process under those two organizations. So we need to really look at this sovereign immunity matter.
Okay. All right, Donna, your thoughts, qualified immunity.
I don't understand what that means, even with his explanation of it. So I'll have to defer to someone else.
Okay. That's Tony. Thoughts on that?
Well, I think the most obviously hot button right now is when qualified immunity is applied to the police department, their actions, and protecting the police officers under that law. I really think that there is a lot that can be done prior to that. We've talked about the quality of police officers and their training, things that relate to today's norm of what we have, what our police officers have to deal with on a daily basis. I think you'll find that when the state of Virginia started closing down mental health institutions, putting people out on the street, now all of a sudden a police officer was having to be a social service worker, and also finding out how to handle the situation for someone that has not been taking their medication or self-medicates on alcohol or drugs, even illegal drugs. So these types of situations usually get good police officers in a position that they don't necessarily have been trained good for. So my theory is that if we can change the way of doing business in the police department, to encourage collaborations with our mental health agencies, our social services, and behavioral health, that would give us a better understanding of the situation at hand when it comes to almost a split-second decision on what a police officer has to do out in the street. And that's where I feel like we could do the best, make it the better effort to stave off these issues when it comes to this situation.
Okay, it's interesting. The Hampton Roads Black Caucus is really interested in where everyone sits with qualified immunity. So thank you for your answers, even though it wasn't one of the questions we shared we'd be asking. But we were just talking about police officers. So what steps would you take in creating a civilian review board for police accountability to improve community relations? Tony, why don't you start us off? What steps would you take, if any?
I'll be happy to. Just this week, a lot of conversation has been going on about police reform and what's the next steps out of the situations that are presently going on. The city of Portsmouth has been looking at and adopting the new 21st century policing out of the past administration, the Obama administration. And that process has been going on long before these incidences happened in the past few months. So I would like to be able to support what the police are doing, getting back to almost a community-based program and dealing with how they interact with the community. A civilian review board, really don't know where that fits into 21st century policing yet. And I think they need to understand meaning the police department, how to navigate through that handbook, basically that 65-page handbook that's coming from the DOJ, which I've shared on my Facebook stream. So I would encourage everyone to check that out. But we'll revisit the Civilian Review Board at a later time, I believe.
All right, Cliff.
Well, we do have a civilian review board. It's called a grand jury. If a police officer breaks the law, then he can be charged by the Commonwealth Attorney directly for breaking that law, and the police officers should be held accountable. Now, in the state legislature, they have just reduced assaults on police officers from felonies to misdemeanors, and that's a serious matter because we're seeing rioting in the streets. We're seeing assaults against police officers. We're seeing police officers being shot and killed. This needs to be where it was back as felonies. You have to have law and order. And when a police exceed their authority, they should also be responsible for what they did. So their administrative head is the chief of police, and her or his person above that is the city manager. And then you have the city council. So all of these people, the city council acts like a review board. If things are out of hand, they're going to go after the city manager, and the manager is going to go after the chief, and the chief is going to go after the person down the line. We also have a civil service review board that's already in place. But I'll tell you, if a policeman exceeds his authority and harms someone and is not protecting the innocent or does something wrong, that officer should be brought before a grand jury, and they get to see impartially whether that person possibly exceeded his authority, possibly broke the law, and they will get a true bill, and it will go before a court, and the court will decide in front of a jury. That is the system that we have. I'm not sure that adding another layer of civilian oversight of the police in a city of our small size is what is necessary. I think in New York, that would be a different story or something. I mean, you've got millions of people in New York with 50,000 officers. We got 13 officers on any shift in Portsmouth. That's not the same thing. We need more officers, but it's a vast difference in the number of officers and the number of citizens in the city.
That's intriguing. That's intriguing. Okay. Thank you. And I'm not sure if I trust grand juries. It's not transparent enough for me. All right. Let me get off. Donna, your thoughts. Oh, I need to unmute you. I'm sorry about that. Yes, go ahead.
We have so much government overlay where there's rules and regulations on everything, and if you don't follow them, shame on you. Portsmouth, New Hampshire has a police commission, which I found in my research that I thought was a very good idea, to leave the police accountability within the local government instead of through the General Assembly, if that's what that's trying to do, create for the General Assembly to have more laws on us. But having a police commission would be really great. When I went to a conference, they had a talk about when citizens complained about the police and how they behaved towards them. They had a community sharing. The police were in plain clothes, and so when the issue came up, the person talked about the issue with the police. Well, he heard it face to face, so to speak, and then after it was shared, then the police showed himself to be the police officer she was complaining about, where the harm could be repaired and the relationship restored. And I thought that was a real nice way of addressing police issues. Instead of making all these rules and regulations, let's do something restorative to help accountability. The police department could do that, but the manager, I don't want to say anything about that, but I think that would work all right.
Okay, interesting. Uh, interesting. Let's talk about affordable housing solutions.
Ask
Is
Tony
this
that last question. He didn't answer.
all right? Yeah, we'll start with the realtor then. We'll start with the realtor. So Tony, unmute yourself, and hey,
No, ask
Mr.
him about the police question. He didn't answer that one.
Oh, we didn't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let's go back. Thank you for
I,
catching that, Cliff.
I
Tony,
did.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts?
he answered that.
I,
You did, right? Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right. So then we'll go back to the housing. Tony, you're the realtor. We'll let you start off. Innovative and creative affordable housing solutions.
well, considering the fact that Portsmouth inside the Hampton Roads market is probably one of the best bang for your bucks when it comes to buying a residence. The challenge is that when it comes down to housing stock in the city of Portsmouth, it is already developed and sometimes anywhere between 30, 40, 50, 100 years old. And if it hasn't been updated or renovated, it makes it a little bit more challenging to keep it affordable. But then what you're also finding is the pattern from developers or builders are coming in and buying functionally obsolete homes and actually tearing them down and replacing them because it basically is what the market is demanding. Um, that's a double-edged sword. I think really at the end of the day, sustainable housing is a bigger buzzword in the city of Portsmouth, where homes that are built today should actually be built in a way that they save homeowners money, giving them opportunities for green or LEED certified type construction and design that allows for the maintaining and keeping homes affordable for the future. That is probably a bigger situation for us. Now, there are unique opportunities to making sure that our homeless population is taken care of, and that's a different concept when it comes to when home reentry into home ownership or possibly just living facilities for people like that. So there's a wide range, but I think you still find that Portsmouth will offer a bigger bang for the buck inside of the Hampton Roads region with the amenities that everyone is looking for quality of life.
Okay. All right. Donna, you're up next. What are your thoughts on affordable housing solutions?
Well, in Portsmouth, we have many organizations that deal with housing. And I think bringing those organizations together to help make recommendations would be the ideal way to go, instead of me trying to tell everybody how to do things, is to bring those people who are in that business at the table at a work session to find out, well, how many people do need affordable housing? I mean, we got to know how many people needs it. I mean, instead of just making a blanket statement, what we have to do is communicate and find out what the need is. And then we have these businesses and organizations to come to the table to work together as a team versus one person doing all the deciding decision making.
All right, Cliff, what are your thoughts?
This is a very complex subject, and a few years back, I thought about going to Singapore, which is a major model, which I compare with the Italian model where I grew up in high school and so on, and been Fulbright Fellow over there, and combining those two and making sure the Chinese would develop it so that half of the world's population wouldn't become the American model. This is very difficult. The Singapore people, they allow anybody to, they build everything, but they allow everybody to rent from them with the rent applied towards ownership, so you don't have welfare housing. And people end up owning the house and then they sell it to somebody else and they move up. It's a very interesting model they have over there. But we have to remember something in housing, that everybody is motivated by cash. If they have cash in their pockets, they're not worried about the cost of the house. It's always within the range. So what we really need to be concentrating on is bringing cash into the city. Our housing here is older, but older doesn't mean anything if it's 150 or 200 or 500 years old. I've lived in Europe where houses are ancient. We built for planned obsolescence in which houses are expected to be torn down in 50 years. Our older houses, 100 or 150 years old in Old Town or even in Craddock, are fine old houses. We let neighborhoods fall down, and we could do a lot of things like Norfolk did. When I was on the design review committee, I was proposing what they did with College Place, and they brought in architects and developers, and they had them on Granby Street, and people could go talk to them about how to fix up their entire neighborhoods. What we need to do really is to understand that people who are leaving the nest and early on in life, they can't afford things. They just don't have houses for rent. And I think that the breakdown of the families where husband and wife are living together and people are getting married, and less so now, is causing a housing shortage. This is a complex thing. I can't answer it in a minute and a half, I'm going to tell you. But what we need to do is aim for the top, not for the middle or the bottom. Aim for the top and everybody will come up to the Joneses. Recently, Cavalier Manor, across the street from them, and where they want to build a casino, they wanted to put up some houses and they wanted to downgrade to townhouses and stuff. And I argued against it. I said, no, Cavalier Manor is falling down. It's not the way it was 3 generations ago. What you want to do is build up so that the people in Cavalier Manor start to keep up with the Joneses and start to reinvest in their properties so they can say, wait a minute, we've got something over here already. Let's make sure that it's better because we want to get more capital out of our properties. People always leave older places and they become the places for the next generation. What we have to do is look at all neighborhoods equally, particularly our historic neighbors, Truxton, Craddock, Old Town, Port Norfolk, Park View, and Shea Terrace. We've got to make those historic districts, and we certainly shouldn't be doing what Mayor Rowe did. He wanted to take away the gravel in the streets and replace it with asphalt, and everybody said no. So he came in there and with city manager and put asphalt patches all over the place. We need to make our historic districts historic and places where tourists will visit. And my intention is to bring money into this city, not to have it leave through corporate capitalists sent home to the stockholders. I want to bring money in here, and money floats all boats. It seeks its own level, gets into every crack and crevice. It floats all boats, and that's how we're all going to get rich.
Okay, great. Great answers. This one is central to the Hampton Roads Black Caucus. How would you support local Black-owned businesses, growth, economic development? All right, so we started last time with Goodwin, Mr. Tony Goodwin. Let's start this time with Donna. Donna, what are your thoughts? How would you support local Black-owned businesses, growth, and economic development?
Well, here we go again. It's all about working together as a team. And we have many organizations and associations that are in control of our economic development. There's a list of them. And we could bring those organizations, even like the Black Caucus and the Chamber of Commerce and the Real Estate Association, and all these organizations that know about business growth and economic development to come together to work as a team to make decisions on what is in the best interest of the local Black-owned businesses, as well as other owned businesses.
Okay. Mr. Page, in a briefer response than last time, answer the question.
Well, I'm not interested in promoting any ethnicity, race, or any organization like that. I mean, that's not what we should be doing as a government. We have a responsibility to treat everybody equally and fairly. But what we don't have in this city, going back 30 years now, when I was on the design review committee, Portsmouth united with Norfolk in a flyer they handed out. Portsmouth had about 4 or 5 things on there, and Norfolk had 7 or 8. They've added more, but we're no longer together. But Portsmouth has reduced its offerings to, and they never were, good offerings that entice anybody to come over here and do business. I talk to businesses of all kinds, Palestinians, Moroccans, Egyptians, blacks, whites. I'm interested in micro businesses and small businesses over corporate capitalism. And practically everybody always talks about bringing Fortune 500 companies to this city and that sort of thing. I'm not into that because those corporate capitalist profits go out to the stockholders. The profits don't stay here. The managers don't live in our city. I'm into small businesses, micro businesses the mom has her children in our school. She's in the PTA. The husband's in the Rotary. He's in the Lions Club. He's in the Chamber of Commerce. And he goes down and complains about the potholes, the lights going out on the street, and the bums hanging out on his corner. He's fighting because he's part of and engaged in the government. It doesn't matter what color you are, what ethnicity you are, anything. I am into small business, and small businesses are what really are the backbone of America, and they are the essence of what we are. We have lost capitalism, and we've become corporate capitalism. I want to bring capitalism back to America, starting in Portsmouth.
Mr. Goodwin, same question. And what do you?
All right. Well, I will first of all apply to some of the experiences that I've had as the Business Association, Old Town Business Association president for about 5 years, and then also being on the chamber board, not only in Portsmouth but also regionally. What I see is, as a professional there in the business, we cannot, of course, do redlining, steering, or anything of that nature when it comes to specific demographics in specific areas. But what I can say is that Portsmouth has a wealth of incentive programs still to this day, that Enterprise Zone 1, Enterprise Zone 2, that scatter throughout the whole city, that are more so directed towards state incentive programs. The Foreign Trade Zone, which has been around since 1983, down around the Port Center Commerce Park, right there at the downtown tunnel. And one that's probably not used enough is the historically underutilized business zone, which is taking a good part of downtown from Chestnut Street on out to the railroad tracks and beyond. And it's driven by census tracts. It's driven by basically where there are opportunities that for lower income areas to bring those up. And I again, in fact, and now we have just under the Trump administration, opportunity zones all over the city. These things are tools in our tool chest to invite businesses in, but more so I'd refer back to my comments earlier about the Minority Business Commission. That is a key component to making it successful, and also telling our story to my colleagues in my business that we are open for business and we want to attract businesses back into the city. And so people are looking because we're geographically located. We just need to be able to make sure that they know what we have to offer for them to come in.
All right. And Tony, let's stay with you. What's your stance on improving public transportation in Portsmouth?
Well, I love this conversation because obviously it brings to light what we have dealt with for the past few years. You know, Hampton Roads typically has not scored high in deals when it comes to maintaining infrastructure and, of course, selling out to the ERC VDOT contract over the Midtown and downtown tunnels is obviously showing its ugly face now to the whole region. Anything built as a road crossing now is conflict to that contract, and ERC is, of course, going to have to be compensated for the loss of revenue or damages. And that's the reason why you have now the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel and also the high-rise bridge being tolled on the extra capacity that they're building. So with that being said, I think Portsmouth is also being has the most endpoints of workers between the Naval Shipyard, the Naval Hospital, and the Coast Guard. You're seeing more people come into this city by way of a road crossing, either be through the river, through the downtown tunnel, or bridge. And we need to be doing a better job working with our military force to bring in multimodal transportation planning into our conversations, and making the opportunity to where what is actually not considered competition in that contract is exactly multimodal transportation. And we can obviously create a better way to transfer and move people by volume. And then at the end of the day, it makes it better for quality of life and commute times.
Okay. Cliff, your question.
Well, transportation is the bookends of my entire platform. 35 years ago, I wrote an op-ed piece in the paper. 10 years ago, I wrote another op-ed piece in the paper. I wrote the governor. I spoke to the council, and I said, do not put this Midtown tunnel in and do not toll us. Nobody understood what I was saying, I guess, but they put it in, and within 2 months, we lost 50% of our business in the downtown. Everybody saw the writing on the wall, which I had portrayed. It is destroying our people. It is ghettoizing us and turning us into Detroit. It is hurting our black folks more than anybody else. The stories I could tell are just disgusting about how people are being destroyed and how much tens of thousands of dollars they owe in debt to this operation. So my solution to all of this is very clear, and I've developed it over 30 years. And that is, we need to bring a high-speed bullet train from Washington, D.C. and Charlotte, North Carolina, through Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and through Richmond into our CSX rail. This was the home of the CSX because this was the seaboard. Of the three things that made this city, one was the ports, one was the shipyard, and the other was rail. We lost the rail 60 years ago when the first tunnel went in. That's when we died. It's just taken 60 years. This last tunnel was just a wooden stake driven into our heart to make sure we never got back up again. Now, what I want to do with that high-speed bullet train is, number one, it's going to be the first in the country, and it's going to put a positive spin on Portsmouth, not a negative one. And I want to connect that tunnel with a downtown cling-clang trolley to the Naval Shipyard, to the Naval Hospital, and up and down High Street so that boaters can get down to the food line and buy groceries and get water. And on the waterfront, I want to put in parking meters in which a boater will be able to put his credit card in there and he'll be able to get water and electricity. We want to keep the people in the store as long as possible so we can pick their pockets. And I want to get people moving from our terminal through the Midtown Tunnel on a driverless shuttle. You can see 4 years ago, people had no idea what I'm talking about. Now they're talking about driverless tractor trailers. But they had that in Heathrow Airport to London. I knew about this, and you can see the picture in my website. I want to bring that driverless shuttle through the Midtown Tunnel with 16 passengers. That's 16 cars we took off the road. And I want to sit down with Mayor Alexander and say, look, let's build the light rail you should have built from the very beginning, the one to NOB. Now we just connected Old Dominion, Norfolk State, TCC on that side, and we'll connect them with our side. People playing football together, people taking cheaper courses at Norfolk State like I did for 2 summers and did a 5-year program in 4 years. It's going to connect the naval base to the naval shipyard to the naval hospital. This provides ridership and will save millions of dollars for our people. But this is how we're going to turn around Portsmouth, by bringing in capital from the 2 richest, most powerful cities in the Mid-Atlantic into Portsmouth. That's how we're going to do it.
Thank you. Donna, I saw you shaking your head. I can't wait to hear your response. So your response, what's your stance on improving public transportation in Portsmouth? And to let everyone know, we're going to allow the candidates a few moments to go back and forth with each other on some of their positions earlier stated. But Donna, what's your stance on improving public transportation in the fair city of Portsmouth?
Well, what is the problem with the transportation in Portsmouth? That's the issue. See, I'm a researcher at heart, a detective, so to speak. I want to know the foundation of issues. So is there a public transportation problem in Portsmouth? We need to find out what it is, number one. From the people. All right, we used to have trolleys in Portsmouth. We used to have 120,000 people in Portsmouth. Now we have, I'm going to say 96,000. So something has happened. And I don't think it's been transportation. But look at Suffolk. They have their own little system of transportation. And of course, I lived in Suffolk for 3 years, so I used it. Bethlehem had transportation, was very adequate. They had a little bus station, I guess you call it, with buses lined up. I don't see that in Portsmouth. I don't know I don't know what the people want for transportation to make an assessment to say, I'm going to do all this and that. The people are the government. If they have issues with transportation, then they need to come to the table and say, whatever the issues are. That's me. I believe the people need to have their voices heard to see how we can fix the problem versus telling everybody what, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. It's not about me, it's about the people. So let's find out what the issues are in transportation and then fix it.
Okay. Okay. Now we're going to move to some viewer questions. So we've had some interesting viewer questions, and let's start with this one from DeAndre Barnes. He's running for city council. I think he was on yesterday. What are your plans to fix the crime problem in Portsmouth? Donna, why don't we start with you? What are your plans to fix the crime problem in Portsmouth?
Number one, communication. We are so broken in Portsmouth with communicating with one another. Now, twice I tried to help educate people about restorative practices in the school system with restorative practices, the whole school change program with petitions that we'd like to get the whole school change program in the school system. That was blown off. Then there was a role play to teach people about restorative conferencing. Nobody showed up for that. So how to fix the crime problem in Portsmouth is we need to look at the youth we're raising in today's society. We're having homes without fathers, and that to me is number one problem.
Okay. Cliff, your thoughts. What are your thoughts? How do we fix the crime problem in P-Town?
This is a very complex issue. It doesn't deal just with the police. It starts with education, and I think there's a huge failure in our education systems. Jefferson talked about education's purpose, and that was to indoctrinate and teach people about how to live in a democratic republic. This is why Franklin said, when asked, what kind of government do you have? He says, a republic, if you can keep it. The purpose of schools is to teach people how to be good citizens, and I don't see it. I can remember when I was in school, people were throwing stuff all on the ground and littering. It was a national campaign, anti-litter. We need to get our teachers, our police in there talking to assemblies. We need to have the police being recognized not as the enemy, but the model. And one of the things I really find disturbing, because I saw this transition going on in 1964 when schools were integrated. They did away with the paddle. Bring back the paddle and give it to the vice principals who are the football coach. Believe me, they enforce the rules. Now we have police in there and kids have a no snitch attitude. They think they're already in jail. So when they get out of school and they're required to stay there till they're 18, they just turn into problem in the city because they're not being trained about democracy and to respect for the law. That paddle was meaningful, but they don't use it anymore. So this is something that happens right at the school. And then I'm really opposed to this casino, adamantly opposed to it, because out there in Cavalier Manor, I'm a communications chief in the Army. I was in the Merchant Marine as a radioman. I fall out of bed and counting shots, and they're going up and down High Street, up and down Elm Avenue. But most of the shots are coming out of Prentice Park, Dale's Homes, and over in West Craddock. I hear and I pinpoint them, and I go out and look at where these are coming from to give better azimuth on where these shots are coming from in the middle of the night. I'm counting shots. So what's going to happen out in Cavalier Manors, if you bring a casino in with this liberalizing marijuana law, they're going to give you free drinks in the casino, but they're going to turn that parking lot into a market for drugs. And all of the major drugs of fentanyl, heroin, crack cocaine, and speed are coming out of Cavalier Manor, being pushed into these poorer neighborhoods. This is where all the gunfire is coming from. If you want to stop the killings, you got to stop these hard drugs, and I need to be tough on them, and particularly crack. This is the worst one of them all. People think they're Superman when they do that $5 rock. This needs to stop, and I mean to clean up the city by enforcing. You have to have a carrot and a stick. You can't just have one or the other.
All right, Mr. Goodwin, your thoughts. How do we fix the crime problems in Portsmouth?
Well, the first thing we have to do is analyze the data that's out there available to us today, and take that information, process it. It's on the city's the Portsmouth Police Department's website. The crime analysis from last year just to this year. Those numbers are down by their recommendations, but at the same time, to prevent future crime, we need to stop thinking about the mindset or the culture of the prison pipeline. If we're basing fourth grade students on how many more jails we need to build, then that's a serious problem when it comes to society. So taking that into consideration, Portsmouth is obviously a blue collar town. We have a lot of people that are not necessarily, or a lot of children in our schools that are not necessarily college bound, but need to have technical vo-tech style schooling. These opportunities should be afforded to them, which they are in some cases with dual enrollment through TC, to get these kids into the workforce. And a lot of times what that'll do is take the element of crime away if they're given that opportunity. But otherwise, if they're dropping out of school and going to the streets, then that's obviously the path they're going to fall into, which creates what we unfortunately refer to as the status quo when it goes in that direction. And so my goal is to make sure that our schools are tooled and potentially bring back in more vo-tech training in ours to get these kids in younger ages, 7th grade rather than in high school, and get these kids knowing something and actually doing good for themselves rather than resorting to a life of crime.
All right. Kiera Colon asks, what's your background in service to the city, and how does that prepare you to be mayor? We are going to limit this one. We're going to limit this one. We're going to limit this one. Cliff, you're killing us. I'm joking.
All right.
Hey, let's start with Cliff. What's your background in service to the city of Portsmouth, and how does that prepare you to be mayor?
35 years ago, I was a charter member of the D1 Design Review Committee. This was the most powerful committee the city has ever had. It controlled everything, including public buildings, the harbor, the landing down there, the boat landing and everything, all the way from the waterfront to the railroad tracks from 264 into Old Town. My fingerprints are all over the downtown. Things that were passed under when I was there, Lobscouse, Cafe Europe, the Admiral's Landing, all the people eating outdoors on the sidewalks. Those are ideas and the kind of things that I wanted to see, having been brought up in large part in Europe and traveled and taught in Europe too. The 600 blocks, when I found out that was going to be a parking lot, I got some business people together and I got to talk to the right people, and we killed that, and it became Prison Square, and the redevelopment of that part of downtown was instrumental. More recently, I reported what was happening with PRHA to HUD IG. They investigated, and it was like Watergate. They started peeling back the onion. The director got fired, and the administrators, most of them got fired or jumped ship, and the city had to come in and replace the board of directors. Likewise, when I went after downtown, the D1, the city manager was fired in 2 months. I've spent a lot of time, 30 years, in every comprehensive plan, every urban planning study that's been done in this city. I've been a part of it. My fingerprints are on everything. And I have led the largest arts organization in the country and organized it at East Carolina years ago. So I have executive authority knowledge.
Thank you, Cliff. Mr. Goodwin, your background in service to the city.
Well, first of all, I'm a firm believer in servant leadership. I do this with everything I've done since being here in the city, going back as far as being on the board for the Oasis Social Ministry, helping them relocate an opportunity center, which was ultimately built over at Chestnut and Duke, and then carrying that forward with commission boards within the Historic Preservation Commission, the Downtown Design Commission, charrettes with ideas and concepts to put together the Vision 2005 committee, both downtown and Elm Avenue. These are all things that I've participated in and been a large part of. Later on with the Old Town Business Association, identifying again what our image was to be. We created a new branding image to be more tourist based, and rolled that out with it becoming a new look to bring people into Old Town. Again, I believe the tourism piece as an enterprise to this city that creates income to take the burden off the taxpayers. So I would like to continue that motion with a seat on the mayor's seat to work with the colleagues on council to further economic development in the city, creating more living wage jobs for citizens, and know where to fix the issues that we've dealt with for the past 10 years and get us back on track to making the city work better for us.
Okay. And Donna, your response to Kiera's question.
My background in service to the city has been more in relationships with families, like the Family Assessment Planning Team, CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocate, working with families, big brothers, big sisters, things regarding relationships. And how that prepared me is that the government is the people, of the people, by the people, and for the people, and we're sovereign. And we need to have the opportunity to come together as people, not just being pushed aside by the elected, saying they had the right to make all the decisions because they were elected. So I'm of the opinion to follow the Constitution. We the people, talk with the people. What are their needs? That's where my experience has come to prepare me for this job.
Okay. We've had some interesting questions that have come in from our viewers. Jessica's is really kind of interesting. What are your plans to help the Black community in Portsmouth? I like that question because it says, what are you doing for me? What's in it for me? And I really think that most of our voters should start asking the public servants or the public servants to be, what are you going to do for me, for mine, for us, for our city? So I kind of like that question. And I hope that question might help differentiate for the voters. So let's do this very quickly. Why are you out of the three? We don't have the other two on the screen with us today. So Donna, why are you the best out of the three to be the mayor for the city of Portsmouth? What makes you better than Cliff and Tony?
Well, because I know what the problems are here in Portsmouth at the foundational level. I see that the people do not have a voice. I see that the elected have failed to give them a voice and don't want them to have a voice. They want to keep their titles. So I think my focus is really on the foundational level of relationships, of families, of teaching people how to resolve conflict, how to help them with their gifts. Everybody's got a gift. How to help them discover what their gifts are. So really it's a foundational issue that I think that helping the people make the decisions and come together to make Portsmouth a star.
All right. Cliff, why are you better than Donna or Tony?
Well, because let me tell you, I am 2 blocks up from the Chestnut Street, which is the city line. And anything beyond Chestnut Street, the city is discounted forever and a day. I'm in what used to be old Lincolnville. So kind of answering Jessica's question, I can't tell you a whole lot about the future, but what I can tell you is what I did in the past. My property sits in the heart of all this, and all my neighbors are Black. Ida Barber was there, and when they wanted to tear that down and redevelopment wanted to pin them and denigrate them and cast aspersions against them, and I was on a committee, I stood up, and my friend Ed Joyner we used to be with the NAACP, and I'm a Republican, and I'm proud of it. But let me tell you, we hooked arms together and we fought that kind of disparity against the people there, because these are my neighbors. And 800 people used to walk up and down my street, and I know a lot of them personally, and they always stop by to say, "Hey, Mr. Cliff," and we talk with each other. I don't discriminate against people. I stand with the poor man. My motto is, I'm the poor man's friend, and I am. If you're a bully and you want to pick on the little guy, and you're my neighbor and you're the little guy, I'm gonna fight for you. When I first came into this city, I said we need to get the curbs straightened out. We need the flooding in the streets. We need sidewalks. I'm still fighting for them. They're somewhere on the priority list, long since forgotten about, but I'm fighting for the people. And, you know, the city operates like a mafia, and I know what's going on, and I've been a advocate for the little man, and I don't care what color you are, really. If you're the little guy, I'm your friend. I do have ideas to put wealth in the pockets of everybody with my transportation plan. It is well developed, and I encourage everybody to read my plan because it's extensive. It'll cover everything. I'm an educator. I've taught everything from Montessori to university. I've taught in every school in this system in Portsmouth and in Morey and Booker T, Old Norcom, New Norcom. I can tell you that I know the problems of our city.
Okay, thank you, Cliff. Thank you. Tony, your question. Why are you better than Cliff or Donna?
Well, despite the situation, a lot of times my colleagues in the business are always, again, saying that it's difficult to do business in the city, do development. Things that would normally take 6 months in one city is taking 2 years in this city. And I think that's got to stop. And I know, and I've talked to many people that are trying to understand how this government works. Quite frankly, one of the major developers in the state of Virginia, in the Hampton Roads market as well, based out of Maryland, literally said, "Hey, man, I got enough headaches already. The city's just dysfunctional, and thank you very much for trying. Buy me tenants, and I'll go ahead and sign you a check tomorrow if you want me to buy a building." But at the end of the day, despite that resistance, I personally handled over $28 million worth of investment as an individual with new buildings, new construction all over the city, not just downtown, and that these have created jobs and living facilities for people that are looking for great opportunities. And quite frankly, I could have probably done 3 times that if it wasn't for the number of the large amount of resistance that typically comes with governmental red tape. So those experiences is what I carry to the table, and those are the experiences that we are not going to repeat ever again with my leadership as mayor.
Okay. I want to highlight Jessica Bennett's question again. What are your plans to help the Black community in Portsmouth? And we're not going to answer this on this forum. What I'm going to do is invite the 3 of you, and I guess the other 2 who decided not to join us for whatever their reasons are, to go on Facebook and go into the Hampton Roads Black Caucus's Facebook page, the page for the New Journal and Guide, and answer this question and interact with the people in Portsmouth who are going to push back, who are going to give you support, who are going to respond to your question, your statements, your position. This is an important question for a lot of us, and I thank you for participating today in the Hampton Roads Black Caucus's candidate forum. You answered the questions thoroughly. You gave your answers. You've given the people in Portsmouth a lot to think about. So, Donna, we thank you for participating today. Thank you, Donna. All right. You know what? Let's do this. 30 seconds. Maybe a little harder for some of us. But 30 seconds. Last words. Your last words, Donna. What are your last words?
Vote for me, November the 3rd. I'll help y'all take the government back for the people, by the people.
All right. Cliff Page, in 30 seconds, if possible. Last words.
If possible, I'm running for mayor. I'm not running for council. The mayor has to be your leader. He should have a plan. I got one. I encourage everybody to go out on my website and read it at Cliff Page for mayor. That's a number 4. Run them all together.org. And read my issues and positions, a path to the future. That will give you a very comprehensive idea about how I want to turn this city around and bringing capital in rather than sending it out to corporate big boxes and it doesn't stay here. We need to turn ourselves around and become manufacturers and producers once again, and we will be the richest city in Hampton Roads. All of us.
All right, Mr. Goodwin. Mr. Goodwin. Last words.
Yes, Seiko, I want to say that thank you very much for the opportunity to have a part of this forum today and the Hampton Roads Black Caucus. I would say that there are two forms of leadership. There's conquer and divide, or divide and conquer, call it either way. And then there's also unifying leadership. I bring to the table the unifying leadership that everybody still needs. The city needs to heal from its past, just the recent past, and carrying forward to better prosperity as a city and all communities being part of this city. This is what I do. This is what I'll continue to do as a Rotarian. I think this is definitely what shines through in my skill set and also style of leadership. But thank you again for the opportunity for joining y'all today.
Great. And we're going to now highlight some of our sponsors. And we want to thank our sponsors for allowing us to have today's forum. We're going to begin with a sponsor from the great city of Portsmouth. This sponsor employs people in the city of Portsmouth, and it might be a great look for all three of you to walk away with one of their products. We thank you, Donna, Cliff, and Tony, for being a part of today's forum. And everyone else, watch the commercial. TallyandTwine.com. Yes, that's TallyandTwine.com, where you can find beautiful watches for men and for women, made here in the United States, made here in the great state of Virginia, made in Portsmouth, Virginia. That's right, made in America, made in Virginia, and made in Portsmouth. TallyandTwine.com. Great watches for the men. Look at these beautiful watches. Aren't they nice, masculine, really attractive? And these sexy watches for our beautiful ladies. TallyandTwine.com. This is my favorite watch. This is the watch I personally own. TallyandTwine.com. Made in Virginia, made in America. It's time for you to get a high quality watch from Tally and Twine. That is my favorite watch. I'm wearing it today, my black on black. Today's theme was black on black in celebration of Biana. You're on our mind, girl. Hey, our other sponsor, New Journal.
The guide is really undergoing a transformation as we focus on social and digital media in addition to our print. But our mission has never changed. It is to be an authentic recorder of news, events, information, and issues as they relate to the Black community. Your subscription today ensures the stories will be told tomorrow.
All right, so thank you for... This show was brought to you by Positive Vibes Incorporated, our consulting services. We do credit fixes, we do tax resolution, we lend private money, and debt consolidation. So if you need some of these services, we're waiting here for you. Credit fixes, tax resolutions, private money, and debt consolidation. Make sure you call Positive Vibes Incorporated.